drinks coach. Bit different this time. Sun's shining. There's trees around. I'm staying in a yurt on top of a mountain. Right, so what am I doing? Well, I decided to go on a bit of a holiday, but we can't go abroad. And I'm in mid-Wales. Yeah, I'm in a little place called Commons Coch near Machynlleth, which is kind of like the sort of spiritual and artistic centre of mid-Wales, just south of Snowdonia National Park, where Owen Glyndwr and all his wonderfulness all started around here. Harlick's only about 20-30 miles north of here. Yes, my wife and I come here quite regularly. And we're not on a beach in Mallorca, so we thought we'd try this one out instead. And look how lucky we were in the late summer weather. I found wine still. I'd like to pretend that I actually found this on the way here from London, because it's made round the corner. It's made between Newton, Welsh Pool, Llanidloes, but basically not very far away from the East Welsh border, just north of Offa's Dyke. And it's a winery called Montgomery. Now, the truth is, my friend Daniel Lambert from the Mumbles down in Swansea, he's been pushing very hard with this wine, trying to show the world this is what he thinks are the best Welsh wines, and they are very, very good, which is the reason why I'm putting them on the show today. I thought it was relevant. We're actually in the area where Montgomery is. The town of Montgomery is less than an hour's drive away from here. By the way, that means like 10 miles. It's just loads of mountains in the way. What's Montgomery all about? Well, it's a family-run winery. It's been going for some time. They're committed to premium wines. They don't mind charging for their wine. Woody Leonard, the director and sort of like kind of orchestrator of this whole thing, he's the main winemaker. And he makes wine some unusual varieties. I think one of the things that seems to have become unfashionable is to try and strive with the great varieties they planted in England and Wales initially, and to go for something more international, because it's a hell of a lot easier to sell a Chardonnay than a Reichensteiner or a Solaris or a Rondo, for example. But some people have old vines. They were committed to what they were doing. They're improving year on year, so why change it? And also, you've got a point of difference. You turn up to your local wine tasting society and ask them to guess what the Rondo is, you'll be winning every time. So, without further ado, let's start with a variety called Solaris. Now, Solaris hasn't been around a long time. It was created by Professor Norbert Schieler. I can't remember his surname, but it's only been a variety since 1975. And Solaris is a grape variety which has been very successful here in Wales for very good reason. But also, it's a grape variety that I've only ever discovered or only tasted in blind tastings from Denmark and from Sweden. Okay, so we're talking about places that are very cold, or at least places where they have a very warm but short summer. But also, there's a lot of rot, there's a lot of rain, there's lots of bad weather. So what does Solaris give Woody and his family in terms of point of difference? Well, it does ripen. It has lots of aromatic flavours. It's made of a cross of all sorts of varieties. Some of its parentage is Riesling, some of it's Pinot Gris. There's Muscat Ottonel in there, which Muscat's a very grapey, fruity variety, and all sorts of other weird things. There's also a trace of what we call hybrid variety. Back 150 years ago, a lot of experiments were done between varieties of grape that we found on other continents like United States, and we crossed them with Vitis vinifera, our European variety, to make them more hardy and more resistant to microbes, insects and so forth. By and large, it was a bit of a catastrophe, a bit of a disaster, but some of those varieties actually stood. And Solaris is one that's been given protected status, I think, since 1997 or so. And it does have a trace of hybrid genealogy. Typically, varieties like that aren't supposed to be grown for table wine production in Europe, but where accepted and where they realise is actually beneficial, it's been passed and accepted. And these guys were making Solaris for some time, and I don't think there are many Solarises on the market, so definitely individual if nothing else. Now, he retails something for $24.95. You can buy it online from the Montgomery Vineyard website. So what does Solaris taste like? Well, the first thing I smell is a really intense grapefruity citrus flavour. it's quite grapey and muscatty as well. So if you imagine a fruit salad of grapes with pink grapefruit in it, I think you can imagine those flavours together. There's that smell of grapefruit rind, the slight citrus oil, which I think is rather attractive. Very soft in the mouth. I think I was expecting more acidity, especially from somewhere so north, but actually it's round and creamy, quite ripe. Well, it stands to reason it's from 2018, and everyone, if you remember how hot 2018 was as a vintage. Different, I think you'll agree. Pretty nice. I reckon that'd be lovely with the local fish. Get a bit of prawn out of the old Irish Sea. That'll work. The other wine here, I've just noticed on their website, I'm afraid that this is currently sold out, unfortunately, but they should be in new vintage quite soon. This is Solaris mixed with a variety that if you've been following this channel, you know I love, which is Bacchus. Bacchus, I think, is possibly the future of English and Welsh winemaking. But here what he's done is he's blended Bacchus and Solaris together. Solaris on its own, if I'm brutally honest, I find it a bit catty, a little bit odd tasting. Some people absolutely adore it. I've struggled with it a little bit, but blending it with Bacchus may be the way forward. Yeah, that's better. There's more of a true grassy wininess underneath here. I think Solaris is almost a caricature of a kind of fruit salad wine, where Bacchus reins that back in, gives it some grassy Sauvignon Blanc, a little bit of gravitas on the nose. Lovely balance. The fruit of the wine goes through the mid palate. Very attractive wine. Again, Woody doesn't muck about. These wines are £30. If you want to buy the best in Wales, this is what you're having to pay. He also makes some very good sparkling wine. He has a Pinot Noir, in fact, a single estate Pinot Noir red, and he makes a sparkling Pinot. He also makes a sparkling from another variety, which was very popular up until the late 90s, if not into the 2000s, called Saval Blanc. I'm a massive fan. And I have tasted that before. I tasted it at the wine fair 2 or 3 years ago with Woody and his wife, and I remember thinking the Sauvignon Blanc was particularly good. Delicious wine. And if you're paying kind of fizz, I think, sparkling wine somehow seems to feel like it's somehow going to be more expensive than it's similar sort of money to the table wines, and the Sauvignon Blanc's very good. I have a fire down there. Right, bring me on to what I can loosely describe as the pièce de résistance. Montgomery Rondo. Rondo is another variety which has hybrid parentage. Rondo is a variety that I saw quite a lot when I first started buying, when I was a wine buyer for Waitrose back in the mid-90s. We were looking to try and make certain wines, and we were trying to make a sparkling rosé, particularly in this instance, and Rondo cropped up. Rondo is a variety you won't see in many places outside England. There's about 50 acres of it in Baden, near Freiburg in Germany, which is the more red wine growing district of Germany than white wine in some ways. It's also grown in Denmark and Belgium and Sweden. Are you seeing a trend here? Yes. This is a red grape variety which is perfectly suited to very cool climates where the weather's tricky. They need to be hardy varieties so they can handle all the frost, rain and whatever nature can chuck at it. But Rondo also has one trick up its sleeve. Rondo is one of a very small group of grape varieties, normally with hybrid parentage, called Tanturier varieties. And a Tanturier red grape is a red grape that if you squeeze it, red juice comes out. Yes, when you cut it in half, the flesh is red. So this was brought in to the UK, especially when back in the 60s and 70s things were a flip side colder than they are now, to add colour to red wines and to add colour to rosés and sparklings, because it always has it. Even if the skins didn't ripen too much, there was still a red juice inside. So if you just press Rondo straight out, you end up with a lovely deep rosé. And if you leave the skins in, it gets just darker. Problem is, it's been hard to manage, and over the years it's taken a while for people to really understand how to grow Rondo. And if memory serves me correct, I didn't know if it's this variety, this vintage I tried, but this was definitely the best Rondo I'd ever drunk. So let's have a look at this. Proper dark colour. Look at that. Lovely. Rondo. It's got a almost blackcurrant darkness, like kind of Ribena. Now, There was another variety which was grown in order to deepen the colour of red wine in England until we actually got a climate warm enough to ripen the grapes, called Triomphe d'Alsace. And Triomphe d'Alsace at best smells like kelp. It's like nori seaweed. It doesn't really fit in with the other food that we've got on our plate. Rondo, on the other hand, when it's ripe, can be quite delicious. And this is 2018. Probably haven't had a riper vintage than that before. It smells really good. It smells like Loire Cabernet Franc. There's a crunchiness to it. Or Marciac, which is a variety. Fair Cervidou is the variety, but Marciac's a wine from the south of France. Or maybe one of the crunchier Beaujolais. But there's a wine that smells really of berries. Elderberries, that sort of thing. Now this wine's only 11% alcohol, but it's fully rounded, it's balanced, has a lovely nose. The palate has no associated hybrid funk. Hybrid varieties often taste like American grape juice, like Concord, which is really nasty. There's a description of foxy about it. Always smells like kind of cat pee. None of that in this wine. Remove that from your mind. Rondo, okay, you're paying 25, 30 quid for this, but it's a red wine from Wales that should be on restaurant lists, and it's absolutely delicious, I have to say. That is, yeah, Dan, you're right, that is the best red wine I've ever drunk in Wales. So while I'm up here in Machynlleth, I'm going to see my friends. If you look back at previous shows, see my friends Bill Bleasdale and Haver Richmond, who make the best natural cider I've ever tasted anywhere in the world, which is only about half an hour's drive from here. I'm going to go and see my friends in the Dovey Valley Distillery, who live next door to where I'm staying. There's some incredible produce up here in Wales. Don't discount it. And look at the weather. I actually honestly can say I wouldn't rather be anywhere else. See you next time.